Have a holly jolly Christmas, it's the best time of the year. Now I don't know if there'll be snow, but have a cup of cheer. Have a holly jolly Christmas, and when you walk down the street, say hello to friends you...
So, Father, did you hear that Robert and I are getting married in June because we finally find a perfect venue?
Wow, that's lovely news. Your mother and I can hardly wait to be grandparents.
Oh, no, not so fast. We aren't married yet.
Ellen also has some good news to share, don't you, Ellen?
Matter of fact, I do. My English professor told me that my essay was the best out of the entire year.
Isn't that great, Edward? Boy, am I hungry. When can we eat? I hope it's before that storm comes and blows the roof off our house. Now, who could that be in this kind of weather?
I am so very sorry to bother you, but you see, my car broke down about a mile away and I don't have a phone to call my family to tell them where I am. Could I possibly use yours?
Yes, of course. Please, come inside quickly. It's freezing out there.
I will only be a minute.
Please, take your time. I don't believe I got your name.
My name is Grace Smith.
Pleased to meet you, Grace Smith. I'm Edward Whitman.
I know who.
Ed, what is taking you so long? Coming, my dear. Just through there. Take your time.
Thank you.
Where is Robert?
Oh, he went to the kitchen to see the storm through a large window.
Ah, I see.
Heather, what is at the door?
A very nice lady named Grace, but seemed to have lost her way. Well, I let her inside because she was looking for a phone.
Did you let her inside? You can just invite strangers into our home.
Christmas is a time of giving and caring. It's not a time to be selfish, Ellen.
Good evening. Unfortunately, I couldn't reach my family as Simza has left their phone.
Never let you out in such a storm. It's blowing winds up to 100 miles per hour. We have an extra seat. Please stay.
Thank you.
It would be our pleasure. Isn't that right, Robert? Oh! Mary?
Yes,
Mary, quickly, get a towel.
No!
Oh.
Sorry.
Eat.
What has happened? Tell me, did you see anything out of the ordinary before your father's body was found?
At our house, there is no ordinary, but one thing I do remember very particularly odd was the way that my grandmother was acting up.
She has been sick for a while and hardly ever talks, but something must have upset her.
Do you know what? What was her relationship with your father?
Ever since my grandfather's death, my grandmother held a grudge toward my father because she thought he was cause for his death.
My mother had a hard time coping with the problems between my mother and her husband. It's been a difficult time for my family, especially around the holidays.
Why someone would want to kill your husband?
Edward was the kindest man I ever knew. He was so selfless and always willing to help others, even strangers, like what he did with Miss Smith. There is no one that could ever want to end up his life.
Well, clearly there was someone. And is there anyone you can think of?
Are you accusing me of being a liar? Anyway, my husband never shared his work with me. When he came back home from work, he was only interested in our family. He was an honest man.
What can you tell me about Mary Diaz?
Mary is a dear friend of mine. She was very loyal and humble towards Ed. She also was my mother's housemate and was a big help throughout the hard time with my father's passing. I hope you don't think she's one of the main suspects. Well, she's very kind and loving.
And completely eliminating her yet, we still need to talk to more witnesses. What were you doing talking with Miss Grace in the kitchen?
She blackmailed me into it. No one can know. I must protect my husband. It's my duty.
What is it that no one can know? Mrs. Diaz, if you don't tell us that you could be in some serious troubles. What was Miss Smith blackmailing you with?
Oh, all right. My husband, back in Mexico, was involved in the Serpiente drug cartel. I was afraid that if Mr. and Mrs. Whitman found out, they would fire me. Que susto! I had to do what Grace told me to do. This job means everything for me. The Whitmans are like...
What was that Miss Grace told you to do?
When she came into the house, she went to the kitchen. When I saw her, I was terrified. She wanted me to poison Mrs. Whitman's soup. She said that if I didn't, she would tell everyone about my husband. And that's when we started to argue until Robert saw us. Grace immediately stopped talking and told me to go into the dining room.
Did you poison the soup for Miss Whitman?
Yes, I did. And I even set it down on Mrs. Whitman's place. She was meant to die, not Mr. Whitman.
What can you tell me about Grace Smith?
She has changed a lot since I last saw her, you know. She must have lightened her hair, or maybe she cut it a bit. Well, she looked much better with darker hair, you know.
You have met Miss Smith before then?
Well, of course I have. Well, she was after all Edward's mistress. But that was 20 years ago. Well, I have had to pretend that I don't know anything about it for such a long time that I was starting to get crazy.
Your granddaughters, Ellen and Jane, said that you were sick. How can I know that you are telling me is true?
Well, you have to believe me. Edward and Grace had a child that Edward didn't know about. Robert is their son. But after the accident, Edward completely forgot about Grace and they lost contact. Yesterday, I think, was the first time that they actually have, talked and seen each other in years.
What do you think about Robert? Do you think he knows that Edward was his father?
Until last night, he didn't have a clue, no, but yesterday I overheard him talking to Grace in the kitchen. And when he came out, he was so confused. He was so shaken up that he spilled his wine. And it was all over my mother's tablecloth. And when everyone was trying to clean up, I noticed that he switched the bowls of Beatrice in that room.
Thank you, Miss Anderson. You've been a great help. Okay, Miss Smith, what were you doing at the Whitman's house the night that Edward Whitman was murdered?
My car broke down about a mile away and I wandered into that house because I was searching for a phone. It was just an accident.
You say your car broke down. Yet our team never found any car within a 2-mile radius.
But
I think, Miss Smith, that you came to the Whitman house not with the intention of using a phone, but with the intention of blackmailing Mary Diaz into poisoning Beatrice Whitman so that you could have a chance at being with Edward Whitman?
What? That's astounding! Why would anyone do such a terrible thing?
I don't know why. Why don't you tell me?
It's true. I didn't come to the Whitman's house to borrow their phone, but I didn't kill Edward. I have loved Edward my entire life. We even have a son together. I couldn't
I can't live without him.
This son of yours is Robert Harrington, correct?
Yes, when I went to the kitchen I told him I was his mother and that Edward was his father. He took it well until he spilled a glass of wine and...
I've got it.